Welcome to the Startup Leader Show, where we learn lessons from startup founders and executives. I am your host, Lisa Dreher, and I am really excited to introduce our guest for today, Shelli Brunswick. She is the COO at Space Foundation. Welcome to the show, Shelli.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. It seems like a wonderful time to talk about the space industry and all the amazing opportunities that are available.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So maybe you can start by talking a little bit about your background as well as give us an overview of the Space Foundation.
Absolutely. Well, I always like to highlight my journey has three chapters. And that first chapter is when I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force right out of high school. I didn't have a college ambition. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have college money. And I wanted to see the world. And the Air Force was a great opportunity to do that. And I was able to get stationed in Turkey and Germany. I learned a skill set. I was a personnel specialist, an HR specialist that you would probably say, human relations. And I went to school at night and earned my college degrees, which allowed me to apply to become an officer in the Air Force. And I was selected to become an officer as a space acquisition officer, or space program management is what I call it. And that started my 25-year career in the space industry, which led me to my third chapter, which is when I retired from the Air Force and joined the Space Foundation. And I've been at Space Foundation 8 years. And Space Foundation is a U.S. nonprofit that does business internationally through our three main divisions. We have our Symposium 365, our Center for Innovation and Education, and Global Alliance. Symposium 365, many people may know, our annual space symposium. It is the premier global space event, bringing together military, commercial, civil, and international thought leaders from around the world. Through our Center for Innovation and Education, we are doing workforce development and economic opportunity to create the workforce we need today as well as into the future. And then Global Alliance is all about building partnerships and being a thought leader for our industry. So it's been an amazing journey for me, and I'm so grateful to be part of the Space Foundation team.
Wow, what an amazing career and background, and really sounds like the Space Foundation is very lucky to have you on board. Maybe we can start by having you talk a little bit about what the global space ecosystem is. We kind of teased this out before this event happened. How do you describe this?
Well, a lot of people, when they think about space, they think about going to the moon and on to Mars. And space is certainly those things. We've seen the announcement for the Artemis crew. We hear about going to the moon. But space is also about bringing that amazing technology back here to Earth to benefit our everyday lives. And so when we think about it, we're talking using telecommunications right now. And this was created by the space industry. And so space is part of everyday life, whether it's using our favorite cell phone and taking a selfie, which is usually NASA imaging technology or algorithms that help us get to GPS, a location we want to go to. We're using space technology in so many ways. And last year, the Space Foundation, through our space report, identified the space industry of being $469 billion globally. And of that $469 billion, 77% is commercial. It's those products and services we're using every day. Telecommunications like Zoom, but it's also healthcare. People don't think about the amazing technology from space, like the Hubble Space Telescope was designed to look into space for anomalies. And a company took that technology and commercialized it to look for anomalies in the human body, and that's how mammogram detection was founded and has saved millions of people's lives. So that space technology, that global space ecosystem is benefiting humanity every day. And it's so exciting to be out here sharing with your audience, entrepreneurs about how they could be part of the space ecosystem.
Absolutely. Wow. And so now you've really gotten my interest on this. So when you think about some of these startup opportunities and things like that, and I guess taking advantage of these technologies that are coming out of the space industry, how do we find those things and how do we understand what's available out there?
Well, it is challenging to say, okay, space is part of my everyday life, but what does that mean? So, a great place if you're an entrepreneur and you're in ideation phase is to go to the NASA Tech Transfer Office. There's also one in the European Space Agency as well as the Japanese Space Agency. And in America, there are some other tech transfer offices, such as the Department of Energy and Air Force Research Lab. Well, I'll focus on NASA. If you are all Googling furiously now, NASA Tech Transfer Office, you will see there are thousands of patents that the US government has found through the space program that are waiting for individuals to apply for the patent and commercialize it. And those could relate to energy, food, telecommunications, healthcare, creature comforts, and so much more. So if you're in ideation of your idea, start at the tech transfer office for NASA. Maybe you don't want to apply for that patent, but I bet it'll give you some good ideas on a company or an idea you might want to start yourself.
Yeah, no doubt. Very exciting. And then I know there's Space Act agreements as well, which help organizations actually develop some new technologies. Are you involved in that at all? Or are you familiar with that program?
I'm familiar the Space Foundation doesn't have a Space Act agreement at the moment, but there's a lot of ways for technologies that are emerging to partner with the government. You know, you could look at it as a public private partnership where the company is developing technology that is definitely meeting the needs of the government. So for those of you who are interested in the space program, you know, the Artemis plan is out there and you can see the timeline they're on and you can see where they have technology solutions and where maybe they need a technology solution. And the Air Force and Space Force and other government agencies have these same type of things. Now, they may be more restricted and classified to US citizens or US citizens who work for companies who have security clearances. But all of these baselines are out there, and there's an opportunity to have dialogue with the government, not just the US government, but other governments to find out what are the technology challenges they're having. And I talked about tech transfer, whereas we transfer technology from the government to industry, but there's also tech insertion, where industry could be leading in a technology and they could insert that technology into a program to help it develop faster. And there's a lot of opportunities where there are meetings that take place with government agencies and entrepreneurs to make sure that they're delivering and developing technology that's needed. So that's part of Space Act agreements, but it's also when you think about incubators and accelerators, a
Mhm.
lot of times incubators and accelerators are a good place to do that matchmaking with government as well as entrepreneurs to make sure entrepreneurs are coming up with solutions that are needed for the government.
There we go. Wow. Okay, so we kind of started out early on. You were talking about how I think you said 77% of that space industry is made up of commercial. And I mean, I think that is just amazing because obviously that has changed pretty dramatically over the last, what, I don't know, 20 years or so. So, talk a little bit about what the growth trajectory is for the global space ecosystem.
So, as we're looking at last year, the global space economy was $469 billion. We're now looking at 2030 being $1 trillion and by 2040 being $3 trillion. And what's so exciting about this is it's really about technology we're already thinking about. We've already heard about artificial intelligence and virtual reality and energy and healthcare and food, agriculture. So, the technology you're already interested maybe in has a space application and there's already an intersection. There's also, I look at 13 different economic sectors. So one of those economic sectors is definitely the space industry, you know, and that's rockets and astronauts and going to the moon. But those other 12 sectors are immersed with space technology, education, financial service. I mean, think about your financial service. How many of you have used a credit card or gone to an ATM? You know, those don't work without space technology because every time you use your credit card, there's a date timestamp group on there that comes from GPS. And that is the original form of blockchain because that validates that was a valid transaction. So you can't have ATMs or credit cards anymore without the banking system. You can think about food and agriculture. You know, we use GPS for precision agriculture. You know, they could have GPS on the John Deere tractors or other tractors that allow the rows to be more precise, which can increase crop yield by 10%. We also ship food from one part of the world to another part of the world using GPS and understanding shelf life and everything. So if you had blueberries this morning and you maybe live in Nebraska, those probably came to you via space technology because they were grown somewhere else. So people, the food we're eating, our financial service, but even education, we look at our educational tools. Think about what the pandemic would have been like had kids not been able to do school from home. All thanks to Zoom technology and telecommunications, we're able to provide education now online virtually, which is all a benefit of space technology. And I could go on and on with public safety and transportation and advanced manufacturing, but space is part of almost every career and every economic sector. So for people who are interested in those sectors, there's a great opportunity for you to be part of the space industry.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like there's limitless potential here, but what are some of the challenges of growing the space industry?
Well, it's the challenge that many employers have today. We have a workforce shortage, we have a skills deficit, and an innovation gap. And what I mean by those three is the workforce shortage. Here in America, our workforce is aging, especially in the space industry. So, how do we get new individuals, that are excited about space to come into the industry? As well as mid-career. We need individuals even mid-career to say, "Hey, I've always wanted to be in the space industry. How do I do that? Let me join you. Let me take those skills I learned as a program manager or a policy maker or a teacher, and let me come into the space industry." So that workforce challenge. The skills deficit. I may have somebody who wants to be in the space industry, but maybe they need some reskilling and upskilling, whether that's formal education or informal or an internship or fellowship. But some individuals may be getting laid off right now. We've heard about some layoffs taking place, but those individuals could look at, hey, the space industry is still hiring. And then that third one is the innovation gap, which is why we're really here today for Startup Nation, is because we're looking at we need entrepreneurs, we need innovators who want to harness that space technology and commercialize it to help benefit humanity. I talked about formulated food and WD-40. How many know what WD-40 is? We all love that. WD-40, Tempur-Pedic mattress, tennis shoes, creature comforts. Those are all forms of space technology that people don't think about being part of our everyday life. But again, you can go to that NASA website, Tech Transfer. You could look at commercializing that, or you could look at building rockets or creating technology that could help us settle the moon and Mars and beyond. So, space is open for business.
Ha, there you go. Okay, so thinking back over your I don't know, 25 years of your career, what are some of the key lessons that you've learned?
Well, some of those lessons I share is you should take advantage of every opportunity. And the other thing is opportunity sometimes looks like work. So one of my examples is when I enlisted in the US Air Force right out of high school, I was able to take advantage of tuition assistance and go to school at night or on the weekends. Now, not everybody wants to go to school at night or on the weekends, but by taking advantage of those programs to help pay for my college, it meant I didn't have any college debt. I was able to earn my degrees, and I was then able to apply to become an officer in the Air Force. So taking advantage of opportunities, and that can also be volunteer opportunities as well. So look at opportunities, and sometimes they look like work. Another one is, don't fear the unknown. So when I became an officer, my goal was I wanted to be a personnel officer because I was in personnel. That's what I did. But the Air Force decided I should be in space. And I didn't want to be in space because I didn't know what a space acquisition officer was. I'm like, who wants to do that? Does anybody even know what that is? Why am I doing this? How do I get out of this? So I tried to get out of it. I asked mentors and individuals who supported me to call and see if the Air Force would reclassify me. And one day I got a call from somebody at the Air Force Personnel Center who said, Sergeant Brunswick, we really need you to be a space acquisition officer. And he wasn't really asking, he was telling me, and I saluted smartly and I accepted that. And that started my 25-year career in the space industry. I'm so grateful I did not get what I thought I wanted because it's been so much better. So, don't be afraid of the unknown. Try new things. This is a great opportunity. For entrepreneurs that are listening today, you know, You just keep trying. Sometimes you have failure. Maybe you try one solution, it doesn't work. You try another one, you try another one. So life is a journey. Enjoy the journey and try different things. Don't be afraid of trying new things. The other thing is don't be afraid of failure. We know that in the space industry, we've seen SpaceX has had many attempts and other, inventors, Thomas Edison, how many times did he have to try to get the light bulb to work and electricity? But when I applied to become an officer in the Air Force, I was not, and I am not a STEM professional. I do not have a science, technology, engineering, or mathematic degree. And that is really what the Air Force was looking for 25 years ago. So the first time I applied, I was not accepted. So I failed. Or sometimes you take failure and you just say fail and you say first attempt in learning, fail. And so I went ahead and updated my application. It was automatically going to meet another selection board, but I updated it. I redid letters of support. I repositioned myself, and on the second try, I was selected to become an officer and a space officer, a space program manager. And so, don't be afraid of failure. Take it, learn from it, and grow. And so, those are just three quick lessons I'll share with you.
That's awesome. So you were Space Force before there was Space Force.
Exactly, I was.
That's great. What would you recommend to people that are really interested in getting into the space industry?
Well, I share an interstellar guide to success that has 5 steps, and it's awareness, access, training, connecting, and mentoring. So, that first one is awareness. You're getting some awareness today that there are opportunities for you in the space industry. And you can find other webinars, follow me on LinkedIn, I post opportunities. The second one is finding an access point. So, I highlighted the NASA Tech Transfer Office. If you're an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, you could go apply for a patent, apply for a grant called a Small Business Innovative Research Grant, and you could try to commercialize some technology. But there are a lot of other access points in the diplomacy area. So I post a lot of that on my LinkedIn as well, where there might be access points to help you get into the space industry. The third thing is training. A lot of times, you may need formal or informal training. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a rocket scientist, you need to have a STEM degree. But maybe you want to be something else. You want to be a welder, an electrician in the manufacturing sector. And we need those too. We need everyone from high school graduate to PhD. So maybe you need formal or informal or an internship or a fellowship. So you need some training. That fourth step is join organizations that are like minded, networking and connections. So come to Space Symposium, join Women in Aerospace, Women Tech Network. The United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs has a space for youth, a space for women. So join those like minded organizations, find other people like you because they also know about other opportunities. And then that fifth step, which can really help you overcome the other four, is find a mentor. And there are some great mentoring programs with Women Tech Network, the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, Space Generation Advisory Council. And even though a couple of those have women in the title, they're open to men and women, as well as we need men and women to be mentors for those programs. So, again, awareness, access, training, connecting, and mentoring.
Wow, fantastic. So I understand that mentoring is something that you're actually pretty passionate about. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I believe there's a new form of leadership, and it's called global transformational leadership. And it means we don't need to be an official position of authority to be a leader. We've seen 12-year-olds start climate change movements. And the three traits of a global transformational leader is inspirational, authentic, and gratitude. And when I think about gratitude, it's really about being that servant leader, being grateful for the opportunities you had and paying it forward. And I'm at a point in my career where I'm very passionate about being a servant leader and paying it forward and helping others find their way. So that's why I volunteer my time to be a mentor for the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, Space for Women program, as well as Women Tech Network. And then on occasion, I'll do some speed mentoring programs. So I think it's really important, no matter where you are in your career, that you're grateful and that you give back. And so you can be a mentor at any point in your career. A college student can mentor a high school student, or a college student can mentor someone like myself and teach me how to use reels and be more available on social media. So it's not about age either. It's about having a skill and being able to help somebody else accomplish their goals. So we can all be inspirational, authentic, and have gratitude.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so I want to end with one last question, and this is always an interesting one. So, what would you say is your, I guess, one big prediction about the future, given kind of where we've been and where we're going right now?
Well, I'm a futurist, and as a futurist, what we've learned is change is the one constant. And one of my great friends, Roger Spitz, who's also a futurist, has come out with some guidebooks called, Thriving on Disruption. So for our audience who's thinking we're going back to normal before COVID or we're going to have a new normal, what I'm going to share with you is there is no normal. There is only change and growth and development. So we're going to continue to see technology advancements. We're going to continue to see disruptions in new technology. We're going to continue to see changes in climate change and weather and other activities in politics. So what we need to do is become very resilient, adaptable, and then navigate uh, change and thrive on it. So again, Roger Spitz, amazing person, and his guidebooks are Thriving on Disruption. And so I take my hats off to him. And if anybody's interested in navigating it, those are some great guidebooks. He has 4 of them out that could be really helpful.
Great, great, great. I love it. A great prediction. And as all of these changes come to pass, we'll have to have you join us again. Can you tell our audience if they wanted to learn more about Space Foundation, what they should do?
Absolutely. Well, we are both Space Foundation and myself, Shelli Brunswick, are on social media platforms. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, as well as you can come to our spacefoundation.org website and learn more about our amazing programs, whether it's kindergarten through 12th grade, Leadership Academy, teacher professional development, or that adult non-accredited learning, which includes entrepreneurial facilitation. So we hope you'll join us. And then, of course, you can join us for some of our in-person programming.
Great. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface, but this has been a great start. And we really do hope that you'll come back and visit us again.
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. And until then, I look forward to seeing you around the galaxy.
Me too.